The crystal wine glasses clinked around the table like tiny bells announcing my humiliation. Vanessa had invited 6 couples to our home for what she called a sophisticated evening. I'd spent the afternoon cleaning, cooking, setting up, trying to make everything perfect. Now I stood in the doorway holding a tray of appetizers, while her friend Amanda asked what I did for a living. "He's a high school guidance counselor," Vanessa said before I could answer. Her voice dripped with something cold I'd been hearing more often lately. "Helps confused teenagers figure out their futures." Ironic, isn't it? The table went quiet. Amanda's husband, a corporate lawyer, cleared his throat. I set down the tray carefully, my hands steady, even though my chest was tight. "Someone has to do it," I said simply. "Be a real man, David." Vanessa looked right at me, her eyes hard as diamonds. "Get a better job. Something that actually matters. Something that can afford the life I deserve." I'd been married to this woman for 8 years, loved her for 10. In that moment, staring at her perfectly made-up face, surrounded by people who earned 6 figures, I barely recognized her. Later, after everyone left and Vanessa went upstairs without a word, I sat alone at our dining table. The dishes were still dirty. The candles had burned down to nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "You'll never be enough for the life I want." I packed one bag. Not because I was dramatic, but because I didn't actually own much that mattered. My clothes fit in a duffel. My books could wait. My wedding ring I left on the kitchen counter next to a note that said simply, "I hope you find what you're looking for." It was 3 in the morning when I walked out. The neighborhood was dead, quiet. Just streetlights and the sound of my footsteps on pavement. I'd called my friend Leo from the driveway. He answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "I need a place to stay," I said. "Come over," he replied without asking questions. That's the kind of friend Leo was. I drove to the river first, though. Parked at the Overlook, where Vanessa and I used to watch sunsets back when things were good. My phone kept buzzing, not from her, but from automated bills and bank alerts, reminders of a life I was walking away from. I got out of the car and stood at the railing. The water below was black and moving fast from recent rain. My phone felt heavy in my hand, full of contacts I didn't want to explain myself to, full of expectations I couldn't meet anymore. I threw it as hard as I could. It barely made a splash, just gone. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Leo's apartment was 1,200 square feet of organized chaos. He worked from home as a freelance software developer, which meant his living room was also his office, gym, and apparently now, my bedroom. The couch pulled out into something that almost qualified as a bed. "Stay as long as you need," Leo said, handing me a blanket that smelled like fabric softener. "Seriously, man, no rush." I couldn't sleep that first night. Just stared at his ceiling fan, spinning slowly, thinking about how fast everything had collapsed. 10 years ago, Vanessa had loved that I wanted to help kids. She'd called it noble. Somewhere along the way, noble became pathetic in her eyes. Leo made coffee at 6 and found me already awake. We sat at his tiny kitchen table in silence for a while. He knew better than to ask if I was okay. "There's this guy," Leo said finally. "Name's Armand. He does financial consulting, investment stuff. Helped me set up my retirement accounts last year. He's always looking for people who want to learn. I'm a guidance counselor, Leo. I don't know anything about finance. You're smart. You just haven't had the chance to use it differently." He pushed a business card across the table. "Just think about it." The card said, Armand Foster, independent financial advisor. A phone number. Nothing fancy. I slipped it into my wallet. I needed money immediately, so I took the first job I could find, night shift at a distribution warehouse. $10 an hour loading boxes onto trucks. The work was mindless and exhausting, which was exactly what I needed. Nobody talked much during the night shift. Just the sound of forklifts and conveyor belts and boxes scraping across metal. I liked the silence. It gave me space to think without anyone asking questions or offering pity. My shift partner was a guy named Carlos, who'd been working there for 3 years while finishing his degree. During our 15-minute break, we sat on the loading dock, sharing gas station coffee. "You hear about that crypto startup?" Carlos asked, scrolling through his phone. "Blocklink. Started 6 months ago. Already worth 20 million. Founders were just regular people. I barely knew what cryptocurrency was. Vanessa had always handled our finances, made all the investment decisions. I just signed where she told me to sign." "People actually make money from that stuff?" I asked. "If you know what you're doing. Or get lucky." Carlos shrugged. "My cousin made 15 grand last year. Bought his mom a car. That night, after my shift ended and the sun was coming up, I sat in my car in the warehouse parking lot, pulled out Armand's business card, and stared at it until the numbers blurred. The diner was called Millie's, open 24 hours, and it became my regular spot after work. Eggs, toast, coffee, $5 total. I could afford that. I sat in the same booth by the window every morning, watching the city wake up. I was counting quarters for my tip when someone walked in who made my stomach drop. Victor Brennan, Vanessa's boss, CEO of Brennan Consulting Group, the company where she'd worked for 6 years as a senior analyst. He didn't see me at first, just walked to the counter and ordered coffee to go, checking his phone. Victor was the kind of man Vanessa thought I should be: successful, confident, wearing a suit at 6 in the morning like it was normal. I kept my head down, but he turned and our eyes met for just a second. No recognition. Nothing. I was invisible to him. Just another tired guy in a diner. Nobody worth remembering. He left with his coffee, and I sat there feeling smaller than I had in weeks. This was the man Vanessa admired, the standard she measured me against. And he looked right through me, like I didn't exist. The waitress came by with my check. "You okay, honey?" "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." I called Armand 3 days later. His office was in a modest building downtown. Nothing flashy. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with glasses and a calm way of speaking that made you feel like you weren't wasting his time. "Leo says you're looking for direction," Armand said, gesturing for me to sit. "I'm looking to not be broke," I replied honestly, "and maybe understand how money actually works." He smiled at that. Most people never admit the second part. They think asking questions makes them look stupid. We talked for 2 hours. He didn't promise me anything except knowledge. Said he'd teach me the basics: how markets work, how to read financial statements, how to identify opportunities. In exchange, I'd help him with research, run errands, whatever he needed. "You won't get rich quickly," Armand warned. "But you'll understand the game. And once you understand it, you can play it." I started the next week. Mornings at the warehouse, afternoons sleeping at Leo's, evenings learning from Armand. He gave me books to read, videos to watch, exercises to complete. It was harder than any college course I'd taken. 3 months in, he handed me a folder with company profiles. "Pick one. Tell me if it's worth investing in, and why." I spent a week analyzing a small tech company nobody had heard of, presented my findings. Armand listened carefully, then smiled. "You'll own something soon, David. Sooner than you think." The company I'd analyzed went public 4 months later. Armand had bought shares based partly on my research. When it jumped 30% in the first week, he called me into his office. "Your analysis was solid," he said, sliding an envelope across his desk. "This is your cut." Inside was a check for $8,000, more money than I'd saved in 2 years of teaching. "I didn't invest anything," I said, confused. "You invested your time and your brain. That's worth something." I stared at that check for a long time. It felt like proof that I wasn't as useless as Vanessa had made me believe, that maybe I could build something from nothing if someone just gave me a chance. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at Leo's apartment. Expensive paper. Embossed logo. An invitation to a pitch meeting at Brennan Consulting Group. They were looking for new investment partners for an upcoming project. This is Vanessa's company, I told Armand. I know, he said calmly. And you're going. Not as David Thompson, the guidance counselor. As David Hartman, independent financial consultant. They'll recognize me. Will they? You've lost weight. You dress differently now. You carry yourself differently. And people see what they expect to see. He leaned forward. Trust me on this. You need to see what's really happening there. The Brennan building was downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place that made you feel small just walking through the doors. I wore a suit Armand had bought me, carried a leather portfolio, and used the name David Hartman on the sign-in sheet. The receptionist barely glanced at me. 15th floor. Conference room B. I took the elevator up, my heart hammering. The doors opened, and I stepped into a hallway I'd visited twice before, once to drop off Vanessa's forgotten laptop, once for a company holiday party where I'd felt completely out of place. Then I saw her. Vanessa walked past carrying a stack of folders, talking to another analyst. She was 15 feet away. Her hair was shorter now, styled differently. She wore a navy suit I'd never seen before. She looked right at me, through me, kept walking. No recognition. Nothing. I stood frozen in that hallway, realizing Armand was right. I'd changed enough that even my own wife, ex-wife, technically, though the papers weren't final yet, didn't know who I was. Inside the conference room, Victor Brennan ran the meeting. 7 potential partners, all discussing a new venture capital fund. I sat in the back, taking notes, listening carefully, learning the names, the numbers, the dynamics, and planning my next move. The partnership agreement came 2 weeks later. Brennan Consulting was forming a new division focused on emerging tech investments. They needed partners willing to invest capital and expertise. Minimum buy-in, $50,000. I had $63,000 now, saved from my work with Armand and 2 more successful investments. It was everything I had, but Armand encouraged me to do it. You'll have access, he said, to their books, their deals, their operations. Information is more valuable than money. I signed as David Hartman, Technology Investment Consultant. The NDA was thick, full of legal language about confidentiality and non-compete clauses. My signature went on page 12. That's when I saw it. A vendor contract list, attached as an appendix. Standard disclosure of existing business relationships. I almost skipped over it until a name caught my eye. Lighthouse Consulting Services. Monthly retainer, $30,000. I knew that name. Vanessa had mentioned it once, years ago, saying it was a contractor they used for market analysis. But something felt wrong about it. I took photos of every page with my phone before submitting the signed documents. That night, Leo ran a business registry search. Lighthouse Consulting was registered to a P.O. box in Delaware. Owner listed as V. Torres. Torres was Vanessa's maiden name, I said quietly. Leo looked at me. She's paying herself through a shell company? Looks like it. I pulled up more documents, and she's been doing it for at least 3 years. That's over $1 million. We spent the next week digging deeper. Leo had skills I didn't understand. Ways of accessing databases and tracking financial flows that seemed half magic, half illegal. I didn't ask questions. Lighthouse Consulting wasn't the only shell company. There were 3 others, all registered to variations of Vanessa's name or connected addresses. Together, they'd received almost $2 million from Brennan Consulting over 4 years. This is fraud, Leo said, printing out spreadsheets. Like actual criminal fraud. She's embezzling from her own company. Victor's company, I corrected. But yeah, the question was, what to do about it. Part of me wanted to walk straight into Victor's office and dump everything on his desk. Watch Vanessa's perfect life collapse the way mine had. But Armand had taught me patience. Don't react emotionally, he'd said over and over. Gather all the information first. Understand the complete picture. Then make your move when it counts most. So I kept quiet and kept watching. Attended partner meetings, reviewed investment proposals, and slowly built relationships with other people in the company, including Vanessa's assistant, Holly, who loved to gossip during lunch breaks. Vanessa's brilliant, Holly told me one day, but she works with this consultant who's kind of weird. Never comes to the office, just sends reports by email. Gets paid a fortune. Which consultant? Adrian Brennan, Victor's nephew. He does market analysis, supposedly. But I've never seen his work. My blood went cold. Brennan? He's family? Yeah. Fresh out of business school. Victor gave him a chance. Holly rolled her eyes. Vanessa's the one who pushed for it, though. They're close, apparently. Adrian Brennan's employee file was easy to access once I had partner credentials. College graduate, MBA from a decent school, hired 18 months ago at Vanessa's recommendation. Salary: $120,000. Job title: Strategic Market Consultant. But his actual work output? Almost nothing. A few generic reports that looked like they'd been pulled from free online research. No meetings. No presentations. No real contribution. Leo found his social media. Pictures of expensive restaurants. A new BMW. Vacation photos from the Bahamas. All posted during business hours. He's not even pretending to work, Leo said. And look at this. A photo from 3 months ago. Adrian and Vanessa at a charity gala. His arm around her waist. The caption: Great evening with an amazing woman. My hands shook holding the phone. This wasn't just embezzlement. Vanessa had been funneling money to her lover through fake companies, and Victor's own nephew was helping her do it. What are you going to do? Leo asked. I thought about Vanessa's words that night at dinner. Be a real man. Like being a real man meant being ruthless. Like success required stepping on people. I'm going to be better than her, I said finally. Which means doing this right. I called Armand and told him everything. He listened in silence, then said 3 words. Document everything first. Armand arrived at Leo's apartment with a leather briefcase and the calm focus of a surgeon preparing for a difficult operation. He spread documents across the coffee table, everything we'd found, plus things I didn't even know existed. Legal leverage, he called it. But we need more before approaching Victor. We need proof of intent, proof she knew what she was doing was illegal, and proof that she's still doing it. How do we get that? The IPO. Armand tapped a document. Brennan Consulting is going public in 30 days. They're filing with the SEC. Every financial transaction will be scrutinized. When auditors find these shell companies, questions will be asked. So we just wait? No. We make sure your name is on that IPO filing as a legitimate partner. That protects you legally and gives you standing to raise concerns internally. He looked at me seriously. David, this is going to get ugly. Vanessa will fight back. Adrian will probably try to throw her under the bus to save himself. Victor will be furious that his nephew is involved. Are you ready for that? I thought about the last year, sleeping on Leo's couch, loading boxes in a warehouse, learning to rebuild my life from nothing, while Vanessa spent stolen money on a relationship with her boss's nephew. I'm ready, I said. The next morning, I received confirmation that my partnership stake had been officially registered. David Hartman was now a named partner in Brennan Consulting Group's new tech investment division. My name would appear in the IPO prospectus alongside Victor's and 12 others. 1 month until everything went public. 1 month until the truth came out. I'd been avoiding direct contact with Adrian, but Armand said we needed to confront him first. Give him a chance to come clean before going to Victor. So we set up a meeting at a coffee shop downtown, telling him we needed to discuss some irregularities in vendor payments. Adrian showed up 20 minutes late, wearing designer sunglasses and carrying an iced latte. He looked exactly like someone who'd never worked hard for anything in his life. "You wanted to talk about Lighthouse Consulting?" he said, sitting down casually. "What about it?" Leo pulled out a folder. "We know Vanessa Torres owns it. We know you've been approving fraudulent invoices. We know about the other shell companies." Adrian's face went white. For a second, he just stared at us. Then he laughed nervously. "You guys are new partners. You don't understand how things work here. This is all standard practice." "Embezzlement is standard practice?" I asked quietly. "It's not." He stopped, realizing he'd almost admitted guilt. His expression hardened. "Who the hell are you anyway? Hartman, right? Some nobody consultant Victor let in?" "Someone who's about to expose everything," Leo said. "Unless you cooperate." Adrian stood up fast, knocking his chair backward. People in the coffee shop turned to look. "You don't know who you're messing with. My uncle built this company. Vanessa is one of his top people. You think he'll believe some random partner over us? Your uncle is about to take his company public," I said calmly. "The SEC doesn't care about family loyalty. They care about fraud. And we have documentation of everything." His hands were shaking now. "If you go to Victor, I'll tell him you're trying to sabotage the IPO. I'll say you fabricated evidence. I'll destroy your reputation. Try it," Leo said. Adrian stormed out, leaving his latte on the table. Through the window, I watched him make a phone call, pacing angrily on the sidewalk. "He's warning Vanessa," Leo said. "Good," I replied. "Let them panic. Panicking people make mistakes." That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the night Vanessa told me I'd never be enough. The way she'd looked at me across that dinner table, like I was something embarrassing she wanted to hide. I remembered our wedding. How she'd cried during her vows, saying I made her feel safe and loved. How she'd squeezed my hand and whispered that we'd build a beautiful life together. Somewhere between that day and the dinner party, I'd become invisible to her. Not because I'd changed, but because her definition of success had changed. Money became more important than character, status more important than integrity. The irony burned. She'd told me to be a real man, to get a better job, to matter. Now I was her boss's partner, sitting on evidence that could destroy her career and send her to prison. I had the power to ruin her life the way she'd tried to ruin mine. But did that make me a real man? Or did it just make me like her? I got up and wrote 3 words on a notepad. Do it right. Not for revenge, not to prove anything, but because the truth mattered. Because people like Victor deserved to know who they were trusting. Because real strength wasn't about crushing people, it was about standing up when doing so cost you something. At sunrise, I called Armand. I want to tell Victor everything. Before the IPO filing. Give him a chance to clean house properly. That's the right choice, Armand said. I'll arrange a meeting. Victor's office was on the 20th floor, all windows overlooking the city. His assistant showed me in, and he stood from behind his desk, extending his hand. Professional. Polite. Still not recognizing me. David Hartman, he said. Armand speaks highly of you. What can I do for you? I sat down, my heart pounding. Mr. Brennan, I need to tell you something about your company. Something serious. For the next 30 minutes, I laid it out. The shell companies. The fake invoices. Adrian's involvement. Vanessa's role. I showed him documents, bank transfers, everything Leo and I had compiled. Victor's face went through several emotions. Confusion, disbelief, anger. When I finished, he sat back in his chair heavily. Adrian, he said quietly, my nephew. I gave him a chance because family matters. And he's been stealing from me. With Vanessa's help, I added. She set up the structure. He just signed off on payments. Victor looked at me closely then, really looked. And something shifted in his expression. David Hartman. That's not your real name. Is it? My throat went dry. What do you mean? I've been in business 30 years. You learn to read people. He pulled out his phone, typed something, studied the screen. Then he showed me a photo me and Vanessa from 5 years ago, at a company barbecue. I was in the background, holding a paper plate, smiling. Vanessa's ex-husband, Victor said. David Thompson, guidance counselor. You lost weight, changed how you dress. But it's you. I couldn't lie anymore. He set down his phone. Does she know you're here? In my company? No. She doesn't recognize me. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something I didn't expect. He smiled. Just slightly. You know what's interesting? She talked about you sometimes. Always dismissive. Said you lacked ambition. Drive. Said you'd never amount to anything. I know what she said, but here you are. Successful enough to buy into my company. Smart enough to uncover fraud my own accountants missed. Brave enough to bring it to me knowing it could backfire. He leaned forward. David, I'm going to be honest. I'm about to take this company public. This scandal could destroy everything. Or we can handle it quietly and clean house the right way. What are you suggesting? Let's do this together, Victor said. Remove the rot, protect the company, and make sure people who steal from me understand there are consequences. He extended his hand. This time, it wasn't just professional courtesy. It was partnership. Real partnership. I shook it. Don't thank me yet, Victor said grimly. The hard part is just beginning. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. Victor called it an emergency session to address financial irregularities discovered during IPO preparation. Only board members and key partners would attend, including me. You'll present the evidence, Victor told me Wednesday afternoon. Walk them through every transaction, every fake invoice, every shell company. Make it clear and undeniable. What about Vanessa and Adrian? They'll be there, separately. They don't know what's coming. His jaw tightened. Adrian thinks I'm protecting him. Vanessa thinks she's untouchable because of her performance record. Friday. They'll both learn otherwise. We spent 2 days preparing the presentation. Leo helped me create a timeline visualization showing exactly how money flowed from Brennan Consulting through shell companies and into personal accounts. The numbers were staggering, over $2.3 million over 4 years. The shareholders are going to lose their minds, Leo said, reviewing the slides. This isn't just fraud. It's systematic theft. Thursday night, I barely slept. Kept rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd present the information. Armand had coached me. Stick to facts. Show no emotion. Let the evidence speak. They'll try to discredit you, he warned. Vanessa, especially. She'll claim you're doing this for revenge. Stay calm. The truth doesn't need defending if you present it right. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. I dressed in my best suit, the one Armand had insisted I buy for moments like this. Looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. A year ago, I'd been broken. Now I was about to walk into a boardroom and expose the woman who broke me. Not for revenge. For what was right. Vanessa found out something was coming on Thursday night. Victor had accidentally CC'd her on an email about Friday's emergency board meeting. She'd immediately started making calls, trying to figure out what was happening. By Friday morning, she'd connected enough dots to panic. Leo monitored her email activity. She was deleting files. Years of documents, contracts, communications. Gone. She's destroying evidence, Leo told me an hour before the meeting. Does she know we have copies? No way. She thinks she's covering her tracks. But what Vanessa didn't know was that every deletion was being logged by IT security. Victor had quietly instructed them to monitor her account Thursday evening, capturing everything. Her panic was creating more evidence against her. At 9:30, she arrived at the office dressed impeccably as always. I watched from Victor's office as she walked past. Head high. Confident. She thought she could talk her way out of whatever was coming. Adrian arrived 10 minutes later, looking nervous but trying to hide it. He'd worn his most expensive suit, probably thinking appearance would protect him. Neither of them knew that 16 board members were gathering in the conference room, reviewing printed copies of evidence that couldn't be deleted or explained away. "It's time," Victor said, checking his watch. "You ready?" My hands were steady. My mind was clear. "Yes, sir." "Good. Remember facts only. No emotion. Let them draw their own conclusions." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "And David? Thank you for having the courage to bring this forward." Most people would have stayed silent. We walked to the conference room together. Through the glass walls, I could see Vanessa sitting at the table, talking quietly with Adrian. She laughed at something he said, completely unaware that everything was about to collapse. The meeting started at 10. Victor opened with a brief statement about protecting company integrity during the IPO process. Then he introduced me as the partner who'd discovered irregularities requiring board attention. Vanessa's head snapped up when she heard my voice. For the first time, I saw recognition flicker across her face. Not full recognition, she couldn't quite place where she knew me from, but something registered. I walked through the presentation methodically. Showed how Lighthouse Consulting was registered to Vanessa Torres, using her maiden name. Displayed invoice patterns, showing regular $30,000 payments, with no actual deliverables. Demonstrated how 3 other shell companies followed the same pattern. The board members' expressions grew darker with each slide. Then I showed Adrian's approval signatures on fraudulent invoices, his email authorizations, his complete lack of actual work product, despite a 6-figure salary. Furthermore, I continued, pulling up the final slide. As of last night, Ms. Torres attempted to delete 4 years of financial records from company servers. Its security has logged every deletion. We have full backups of everything she tried to destroy. The room exploded in whispered conversations. Board members flipping through documents. One woman gasped audibly when she saw the total amount stolen. Vanessa stood up, her face pale. This is a setup. I don't know who this man is, but he's obviously fabricated." "Miss Torres," Victor interrupted coldly, "are you denying that you own Lighthouse Consulting Services?" She hesitated. That's a legitimate company. I do consulting work on the side." "For your own employer? Without disclosure? Through fake invoices?" "I was organizing. You were destroying evidence of fraud." He turned to Adrian. "And you signed off on every fake invoice. Approved payments to companies that did no actual work." Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no defense. One of the board members, an older woman named Catherine, spoke up. "I move for immediate termination of both employees and referral to law enforcement." "Seconded," another member said immediately. After the vote unanimous for termination and prosecution, Victor asked me to stay while everyone else left. Vanessa and Adrian were escorted out by security. I watched through the glass as Vanessa walked past the office where she'd worked for 6 years. She looked back once, our eyes met, and finally, she recognized me. I saw the shock, then the understanding, then something that might have been shame. She turned away quickly. "Hell of a presentation," Victor said, pouring 2 glasses of water. "You stayed completely professional. Didn't let emotion cloud the facts." "I had a good teacher," I replied, thinking of Armand. "The board is recommending you for a larger partnership stake. They were impressed by your diligence and integrity." He handed me a glass. "How does it feel? Getting justice?" I thought about that. A year ago, justice would have meant watching Vanessa suffer, seeing her humiliated the way she'd humiliated me. But sitting in that boardroom, presenting evidence that would destroy her career, I'd felt mostly sadness. "Honestly, sir, it feels empty. She did this to herself. I just showed people the truth." Victor nodded slowly. "Armand called me yesterday, told me who you really are, about your background in education, how you helped kids figure out their futures. He said you're the most naturally ethical person he's ever mentored." "I don't know about that. I do. Because you had every reason to be vindictive today. And you weren't. You stuck to facts. You gave them a chance to explain themselves. You could have leaked this to the media, destroyed the IPO, taken revenge in a dozen ways. But you came to me, privately. That takes character. He was quiet for a moment. I'm going to tell you something I haven't told anyone else. When I built this company, I told myself integrity mattered, that I'd never compromise my values for profit. But somewhere along the way, I started overlooking things. Adrian got hired because he was family, not because he was qualified. I let relationships cloud my judgment. You couldn't have known what Vanessa was doing, I said. Maybe. But I should have been paying closer attention. He finished his water. Thank you, David, for reminding me what this company was supposed to be about. The celebration dinner was held at the Grandview Hotel, the same hotel where Vanessa had humiliated me at that dinner party 18 months ago. Victor had chosen it for the IPO celebration, not knowing the history. I didn't tell him. Walking through those doors felt surreal. Last time I'd been here, I was serving appetizers and being told I'd never be enough. Tonight, I was a named partner in a company about to go public, walking in, wearing a suit that actually fit, carrying myself like I belonged. The ballroom was full of investors, board members, and senior staff. Champagne flowed. People congratulated Victor on cleaning house before the IPO, praising his commitment to ethics. I stood near the windows, looking out at the city lights, when someone approached. Catherine, the board member, who'd moved for Vanessa and Adrian's termination. David Hartman, she said warmly. Or should I say David Thompson? My chest tightened. You know? Victor told me. He wanted the board to understand the full context that you had personal history with Vanessa, but still handled everything professionally. She sipped her champagne. That's rare. Most people would have let emotion drive their actions. You didn't. I just did what was right. Exactly. Which is why the board voted to offer you a senior partnership position. 15% stake in the company. Voice in all major decisions. You've earned it. Before I could respond, the elevator doors opened, and someone walked in who made my heart stop. Not Vanessa. I knew she wasn't invited. But someone who'd been at that dinner party. Amanda, the woman who'd asked what I did for a living while Vanessa explained I was just a guidance counselor. She recognized me immediately this time. Walked over with wide eyes. David? Is that really you? Hello, Amanda. I heard people are saying you're a partner now? That you helped uncover fraud? She looked embarrassed. I'm sorry about that night. At your house. The way Vanessa spoke to you. We all knew. It was wrong. But nobody said anything. I replied quietly. Not angry, just stating fact. No. We didn't. She looked down. For what it's worth, everyone's talking about how brilliant you are. How you saved the company. Then, impossibly, the elevator opened again, and Vanessa stepped out. She wasn't supposed to be here. Security should have stopped her. But she'd apparently talked her way past the lobby guard. She saw me immediately. Started walking toward me across the crowded ballroom. Victor intercepted Vanessa before she reached me. I just want to talk to David, she said, her voice shaking. Not with anger, with something that looked like desperation. 5 minutes. Please. Victor looked at me. I nodded. He stepped back but stayed close. Vanessa and I stood by the windows, the same view as 18 months ago, but everything changed. She'd been crying, her makeup was smudged. She looked smaller somehow. Diminished. I didn't know it was you, she said. In the meetings. As David Hartman. If I'd known. Or unknown. End quote. If you'd known. What? I asked calmly. You would have treated me differently? Been more careful? I would have explained. She stopped, realizing how that sounded. I made mistakes, David. Terrible mistakes. With Adrian, with the money, With everything. You made choices. I corrected. You chose to steal from your company. You chose to have an affair with Victor's nephew. You chose to set up shell companies and fake invoices. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. She flinched like I'd hit her. And you chose to destroy me. No, Vanessa. I chose to tell the truth. You destroyed yourself. I pulled 3 documents from my jacket pocket, printed pages I'd been carrying all evening. These are 3 pieces of evidence I didn't present to the board. Want to know why? True. She stared at the papers but didn't take them. The first one, I continued, shows that Adrian wanted out 6 months ago. He tried to stop the fraud, but you threatened him, told him you'd blame everything on him if he didn't continue. He's guilty, but you manipulated him. I held up the second page. This shows you donated $50,000 to a children's hospital last year. Stolen money, but you still gave it away. Part of you still cared about something good. The third page made her look up sharply. And this is your mother's medical bills. Stage 3 cancer treatment. You paid for everything out of pocket because her insurance wouldn't cover it. That's where a lot of the money went. Not vacations or designer clothes. Her treatment. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Because I did my homework. I wanted to understand everything before I acted. I folded the papers and put them back in my pocket. I didn't present these because they would have complicated the narrative. Made people sympathize with you maybe. But I want you to know, I saw them. I knew your mother was sick. I knew you felt trapped. I knew it wasn't simple. Then why did you still turn me in? Because wrong reasons don't justify wrong actions. You could have asked for help. Could have been honest about your mother's situation. Victor would have worked something out. Instead, you stole. And that was your choice. She was crying openly now. People were starting to stare. I'm sorry, David. For everything. For how I treated you. For what I said about you. For making you feel worthless. I'm not worthless. I said simply. I never was. It just took losing everything to realize it. Victor approached then. Vanessa, you really need to go. She nodded, wiping her face. Started to walk away, then turned back. What happens now? To me? That depends on you, I said. The board referred everything to prosecutors. You'll probably face charges. But I told Victor I wouldn't testify against you if you agree to pay everything back and accept a plea deal. You'll lose your career, but you won't go to prison. Your mom will still have you. Video. She stared at me in disbelief. Why would you do that? Because mercy matters more than revenge. Because your mom needs you. Because I'm not the person you thought I was. I looked at her steadily. And because I want to be better than you taught me to be. After Vanessa left, the celebration continued, but I couldn't stay. Too many emotions crowding my chest. Too much history in this building. I made my excuses to Victor and walked out into the cool night air. Leo was waiting outside, leaning against his car. Figured you might need an exit, buddy. How'd you know? Because I know you. You've been dreading this moment for weeks, the public victory. Everyone congratulating you while Vanessa watches her life fall apart. That's not who you are. We drove to Millie's diner. The same booth by the window. The same exhausted waitress who'd seen me at my lowest. She recognized me, despite the suit. You look good, honey, she said, pouring coffee. Things work out for you? Yeah, I said. They did. Leo ordered the breakfast special even though it was 10 at night. So what now? You're rich, successful, partnered with a company about to go public. You got everything Vanessa said you'd never have. I don't want to be that person, though. The one who measures success by proving someone wrong. I stirred my coffee slowly. Vanessa was sick during the trial. Her mother died 2 weeks ago. The cancer won. Leo went quiet. You knew? Found out yesterday. All that stolen money, all those risks she took, her mom died anyway. And now Vanessa's facing criminal charges, no job, No family. She has nothing. That's not your fault, David. I know. But it doesn't feel like winning. We sat in silence for a while. The diner was nearly empty, just us, a tired trucker, and someone sleeping in a back booth. Normal people living normal lives, not caught up in fraud scandals or corporate drama. You know what I'm going to do? I said finally. I'm going to start a foundation for men going through divorces who lose everything. Help them rebuild, not just financially, but mentally. Give them resources, counseling, job training, everything I wish I'd had. Leo smiled. That's perfect. What will you call it? Second Chances Foundation. Because everyone deserves another shot at becoming who they're meant to be. Your ex-wife told you to be a real man, Leo said. Guess you finally figured out what that means. Yeah. It means being someone you can respect when you're alone with your thoughts. Someone who helps instead of hurts. Someone who chooses grace over bitterness. I finished my coffee. She was right that I needed to change. She was just wrong about what I needed to become. 3 months later, the IPO was successful. Brennan Consulting raised $80 million. My partnership stake was suddenly worth $12 million on paper. More money than I'd ever imagined having. I sold half immediately and used it to launch Second Chances Foundation properly. Rented office space, hired counselors, created programs. We offered free legal consultation, job placement assistance, mental health support, everything men needed to rebuild after losing everything. Our first client was named Thomas. 47 years old. Divorced 6 months ago. Sleeping in his car. His ex-wife had gotten the house, the kids, and most of their savings. He'd been an accountant before the Depression made working impossible. I don't know who I am anymore, he told me during our intake meeting. I used to be someone. Now I'm just this broken thing. Nobody wants to help. I looked at him and saw myself 18 months ago. You're still someone, Thomas. You're just going through the hardest chapter. It doesn't have to be your ending. Your marker. Your ending. We got him into temporary housing. Connected him with a therapist who specialized in divorce trauma. Found him part-time accounting work with a small firm, willing to be flexible. 3 months later, he was back in his own apartment, working full-time, rebuilding relationships with his kids. You saved my life, he told me at his 6-month check-in. I don't know how to thank you. We five. Pay it forward, I said. When you're stable, help someone else. That's how we break the cycle. By the end of our first year, we'd helped 43 men get back on their feet. Most were successful. Some relapsed or disappeared. But we kept trying because that's what mattered. Showing up, offering help. Refusing to let people become invisible. Armand visited the foundation office one afternoon, looking around at the counseling rooms and job training center. You built something meaningful, he said. This is better than any investment portfolio. You taught me how, I replied. Not just about money, but about seeing opportunities others miss. These men are opportunities. They have skills, experience, value. They just need someone to believe in them. You know, Victor talks about you constantly. Tells everyone you're the most ethical partner he's ever worked with. I'm just trying to do right by people. That's exactly why you're successful. Armand smiled. Your ex-wife wanted you to be a real man. Turns out you already were. You just needed circumstances that revealed it. Endenang. The wife crazy. Endenang on. Armand. Endenang on patted it. That's exactly why you're successful. I hadn't seen Vanessa in almost a year when a letter arrived at the foundation office. Plain envelope. Handwritten address. I almost didn't open it. David, I don't expect you to read this. I don't deserve your attention. But I needed to write it anyway. I'm working as a receptionist at a medical clinic now. It's honest work, which is more than I can say for the last years of my career. The plea deal you arranged kept me out of prison. but I'm still paying back what I stole. It'll take years, but I'm doing it. Mom died before any of this came to light. That's the only mercy in any of this. She never knew what I'd become. She always believed I was successful and honorable. I'm glad she died with that illusion. I think about that dinner party a lot. How I treated you in front of our friends. I was so focused on what you didn't have that I never saw what you did. Have integrity, kindness, genuine care for people. I wanted you to be successful by the world's standards, and I missed that you already were successful by the standards that actually matter. You could have destroyed me completely. Instead, you showed me mercy I hadn't earned and didn't deserve. That's taught me more about strength than anything else in my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying thank you for being better than I deserved, for becoming exactly the kind of man I should have recognized you always were. Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Reminders are important. They keep you grounded, help you remember where you came from and who you could become if you lose sight of what matters. That evening, I wrote her back. Just 2 sentences. I forgive you, Vanessa. Not because you earned it, but because carrying anger hurts me more than it hurts you. I hope you find peace. I didn't expect a response. Didn't need one. Forgiveness wasn't about her anymore. It was about me choosing freedom over bitterness. Choosing to close that chapter completely, instead of leaving it open to poison my future. Leo found me at my desk late that night, staring at nothing. You okay? Yeah. Just thinking about how strange life is. A year and a half ago, I thought my life was over. Now, I'm helping people rebuild theirs. Vanessa's working reception, after stealing millions. Victor's running a clean company. Everything reset. Not reset, Leo corrected. Transformed. You didn't go back to who you were. You became someone completely new. Is that what happened? I feel like I just became more myself. Like I was always this person, just buried under expectations and fear. Maybe that's what transformation really is. Not changing into someone else, but finally becoming who you actually are. 6 months later, I met Leo at Millie's diner for lunch. Same booth by the window where I'd counted quarters for tips, where Victor had walked past without recognizing me, where everything had felt hopeless. The waitress remembered me, she always did. Your usual, honey? Actually, I'll have the deluxe breakfast, I said, smiling. And whatever he wants. Leo ordered the same thing, and we sat there watching the city move past the windows. Normal people going to normal jobs, living normal lives. A year ago, I'd envied them. Now I understood that everyone's carrying something, fighting battles nobody sees. Foundation's doing great, Leo said. Thomas called me yesterday. He got promoted at his accounting firm, making almost what he made before the divorce. That's fantastic. He wants to volunteer. Help other guys going through what he went through. Leo grinned. You're building a movement, David. People, helping people. It's spreading. That was always the goal. Not building an empire, just starting a chain reaction of goodness. Our food arrived. Eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. Simple and perfect. I thought about my grandfather Morrison saving Uncle Rudolph behind that bookshop decades ago. Thought about Uncle Rudolph saving me with his fortune and his faith. Thought about me helping Thomas, and Thomas preparing to help someone else. Circles within circles. Goodness passing from hand to hand. You ever regret it? Leo asked. Walking away from Vanessa, losing everything, having to rebuild from nothing? I thought about that question seriously. Thought about the year I'd spent on his couch, the warehouse shifts, the dumpster meals. Thought about the shame and fear and loneliness. Then I thought about who I'd become because of it. No, I said finally. I don't regret any of it. Because it taught me something Vanessa never could have taught me by staying. It showed me that success isn't about what you have, it's about who you become while getting it. Deep thoughts for a Tuesday afternoon, Leo laughed. Deep thoughts for a life well lived, I corrected. We finished our meal in comfortable silence. When the check came, I left a $50 tip for the waitress who'd served me coffee during my darkest days. Small gesture, but it mattered. Outside, the sun was breaking through the clouds. Leo headed back to his apartment, which he'd just bought, finally moving out of that cramped rental. I walked toward the foundation office, where 3 new clients were waiting for intake meetings. My phone buzzed with a text from Victor. Board meeting Thursday. We're voting on your proposal to expand the foundation nationwide. I think you'll like the result. I smiled and kept walking. Somewhere across town, Vanessa was probably at her receptionist desk, answering phones, living a smaller life than she'd planned. Somewhere else, Adrian was trying to rebuild his reputation after his conviction. Their stories weren't mine to tell anymore. They'd written their endings themselves. My story, though, that was still being written. Not as David Thompson, the guidance counselor who wasn't enough. Not as David Hartman, the mysterious investor. Just as David. Someone who'd lost everything and learned that everything he needed was already inside him. Vanessa had told me to be a real man. To get a better job. To become someone who mattered. Turns out, I didn't need to become someone else. I just needed to become who I always was, underneath the fear and doubt and desperate need for approval. I reached the foundation office and saw Thomas through the window, talking with a new client, teaching what he'd learned, passing on the help he'd received. That's what being a real man meant. Not dominating or accumulating or proving anything to anyone. Just showing up with integrity, helping when you could, choosing grace over bitterness, building something that outlasted your own ego. I walked inside and got to work, finally understanding that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation. Not of them, but of yourself. Vanessa had been right about one thing. I did need to become someone better. I just didn't need to become her version of better. I needed to become mine, and that made all the difference.